Talking of special things are happening in Winnipeg, no doubt about it. Valour FC are back for another season. They have Phil Dos Santos in charge, who was not there for the full campaign last year. Came in with 10 games to go as he replaced Rob Gale in their pursuit for the playoffs. And they come in as, I think, a real contender here. They've made some changes and they get some significant players back as well. Duncan says, Valour, always my favorite jerseys. People love the jerseys and they're easy to love and root for. But when you look at this team, Charlie, last season, an unbelievably contrasting year. Yes. Came out of the bubble as flying. And by the way, they were not. People said they had home advantage. I know it was in their stadium. They still lived inside the bubble of the hotel. And many people said they didn't have it. Players actually had family members 2 blocks away and couldn't see them while they were in that bubble.
Arguably more depressing, to be honest.
Even more depressing. I agree. 100%. But what about this for a stat? 18 points in the bubble in the first 8 games of last season, 17 points out of the bubble in 20 games. That's how it flattened pretty quickly. Now, I know they got a lot of injuries, and we have to start with the main injury. That's right, their main man, Andrew Jean-Baptiste, who did his ACL in the 7th game of last season in the 14th minute and was done for the year. They got more injuries throughout the year. Rigi got hurt, Romeo, lots of different, Keogh only started getting back. Dyer was a loss. I've mentioned a lot of significant players there. Yeah. So how is your feeling amongst this team? I think they've still got a real shot at making the playoffs, but it's one of those, I think, teams that it showed me before because we still haven't really got a feeling for what this team's going to be.
Yeah, I think that this is a team that we're going to have to watch because Phil Dos Santos obviously comes in midway through last season as coach to take over. It's hard for a coach to come in midseason and actually kind of establish what he wants to see with the club. And we maybe started to see a little bit of it towards the end of the season. They did start to pick up form and they got themselves back into that playoff race, ended up coming actually quite close. Were it not for, I think they drew 3-3 with Edmonton on the last day of the season to miss out on the playoffs. But this is definitely a team with quality, and they have that ability of reaching those heights that they did in the first, I think it was 6 of their first 7 games in the bubble that they won.
That's right.
And then it's absolutely not a coincidence that 7th game is the one where Andrew Jean-Baptiste goes down. And after that, they're just not the same for really the rest of the whole season.
Their bubble burst, you could say.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I guess so.
It's a horrendous dad joke.
But like, in a sense, Andrew Jean-Baptiste is like their big offseason signing.
Yeah.
Because they spent so long without him. Phil Dos Santos never had a chance to work with him, on the pitch during last season. So for him to come in and be back, be ready to go is massive because of how good he was in those first few games. He was, an MVP caliber defender for that first 7 games of the year. And there's a lot of talent elsewhere on this team. I obviously, Willie Akio is a fascinating player, character off the pitch as well, but he scored one of the best goals I think I've ever seen in the CPL last year with that solo effort and that run from midfield. You've got Moses Dyer as well, who really came to life last year after Dos Santos took over, where he plays a little bit further up the pitch, plays as a striker. And then there are new players coming into this team as well. Alessandro Rigi, I think, was a bit of an underrated player in Halifax last year. He's quite a good creative player who can beat players on the dribble. Matteo Debrienne is a player that a lot of people, especially from the Ottawa region, who was big for Carleton University. So there is some solid stuff in place here at Valour. The unfortunate part, I think, is there's a bit of a hole in midfield with the recent unfortunate news that Raphael Ohin has suffered a pretty serious injury. So I'm not sure quite how long they're going to be without him, but it sounds like it's quite a long time. And he is another kind of heart and soul player on that team who has unbelievable kind of determination and ability to just run through defenders with the ball. So that's certainly going to be a problem and a bit of a hole in that midfield, but elsewhere there is a lot in place with this team.
Yeah, a massive loss, not only for Valour, but for the CPL, another CPL coach that I spoke to last week privately said that is just an enormous crushing blow for that team. You talk about his presence, Ohim, with the ball. He covers so much ground as well without the ball, and is a real hunter. So that'll be interesting to see what they're going to do to cover that. Diego Gutierrez comes back. That's one player. They've also brought back Sean Rea and Jonathan Siwa, which is huge because they were obviously big parts of their team last season. Siwa, goalkeeper of the year, comes back from CF Montreal to get another chance. And by the way, Siwa was the goalkeeper of the year by a long way. You watch goalkeeper absolutely stone cold rob teams last year and win games for teams. That was this guy, no doubt about it. Moses Dyer, top scorer of last year, 9 goals. 6 of them all came under Phil DeSantos. You alluded to it. It was an unbelievably attacking team to watch. I don't think even Phil DeSantos was completely satisfied with some of the games last year. No. In fact, he coached 10 games. 3 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, 18 goals scored, 17 goals conceded. It was nuts. But that's fun also to watch. It was fun to watch, but that's also what happens when you play 10 games in 5 weeks. That's all he had was 5 weeks to play 10 games. So it's a little different this year, and that was one of the questions I alluded to when I spoke to Phil DeSantos in 2010. How different will it be now with week in between games to prepare?
I think every team that wants to play a high-energy type of game will benefit from that. The platform, the foundation we created last year, and having a chance to come back with a lot of similar faces. And when you have more time in between games, you also have more time to work, and that's beneficial for every team. So being able to work on elements that didn't go as well in a game or that you want to grow in your model. So I think those having a proper calendar with games being a bit more spread out, it will benefit the sport. And I think that it's going to be good for the fans too. More quality in the games, higher paced, more energy. So I'm looking forward to that.
Much to look forward to for Phil DeSantos, including, that's right, another little trip to Vancouver to play his forward to the Whitecaps in the Canadian Championship, which will be spicy enough as well. That will be interesting as well. We're not quite sure exactly when Andrew Jean-Baptiste will be back. Hopefully it's now when he's ready to go, but we're going to wait and see, obviously, until the lineups come out. They start their season on Sunday in Edmonton, which will be a big game. But undoubtedly, the moment that he is on the pitch, this team turns into a contender. In fact, you could go on and make a big argument that he is the finest defender currently in the Canadian Premier League. It was heartbreaking to see him go down on his own field last season. Did not get a chance to really play in front of his own fans and did not get to travel with this team throughout last year as they went through a playoff. That hurt him a lot, I know. Here is our chat with the man, the mountain, Andrew Jean-Baptiste.
Let's just start with what preseason has been like for you guys, how excited you guys are to be back and to get going.
I mean, the energy in the room from the first day has been amazing, very positive, and you can see from the guys that everybody's all eager to get back into it. You know, these off seasons are not exactly the easiest to deal with, but the desire to get back on the pitch from everybody is what's pushing us more and more every day.
I don't think that you've ever actually played for Valour outside of a bubble.
Sadly, I haven't.
So it's got to be exciting to be kind of coming into a more normal season, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's what I've been accustomed to. It's what I've grown into playing all these years, and so yeah, it is something to look forward to. You know, to actually have a full season with this club under my belt.
Yeah, certainly last season started really well for you guys. You know, those big wins, and you personally looked like you're going to have an amazing season, right? But then, as we all know, injury comes, and that's tough.
It's part of the game. It was a big, punch in the face, having to deal with it. And honestly, from when the moment it happened, my mindset was like, is this really what it feels like? Like, I couldn't, wrap my head around it. Like, wow. Thinking back to so many of my friends and former teammates of mine, they all flash in my head. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's when I knew, I have a task ahead of me that I'm gonna have to do the exact same thing. And, having people who've done it before and, prevailed is somewhat motivating to me, knowing that I can do the exact same thing, but it's gonna require me to put the work in if I want to achieve those same things.
You kind of stuck around the team, right, after that happened?
Always.
I'm sure that they appreciated it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard in the beginning. For me, my football is It's like my everything, to be fair. You know, my family knows it's football and family and friends in that order. But like my family back home, they're a football family too. You know, my mom's a president, my dad and my brother are also coaches. You know what I mean? So we understand as far as what football means to all of us. So with that being said, it made it real hard for the next several games after that injury, you know, to be around the bubble. I went from being the guy that, you know, everybody was like looking up to, and the opponents would, you know, look at me in the hotel, and it's like, oh, that's that guy, you know what I mean? And then, you know, you went from being that guy to that guy in crutches. And it kind of got at me. It got under my skin a bit. And the next several games after the bubble, it was a bit hard.
Last season, when you were playing, you were, as you said, you were the man. Like, you were probably the best center back in the league for those few games that you were still there. How confident are you that you can, you know, maybe not miss a beat, get back to that level when you're back on the pitch this year?
Oh, when I'm back, I'm back. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. It's I'm not gonna miss a beat when I get back on it, you know, because I know the game, I like the game, I love the game. So when I know that I'm back out there, and you know, there's not a thought in my mind about what I sustained the year prior, I'm not gonna miss a beat.
It's interesting that you mentioned, you know, how many young Canadian players are on this team, because obviously you yourself aren't originally Canadian, but you've come into this group and you seem to have really bought into kind of the club and what you guys are building in Winnipeg. How important has that been to you?
Amazingly important. You know, I'm involved with the Valour Academy as well, and you know, seeing from outside of just the Valour and the CPL, and you start seeing what Manitoba and Winnipeg has to offer as far as other football talent, because you know, people, we have this joke in the locker room quite a bit. It's like, oh, who's the best player to come out of Manitoba? You know, right? Dyer Scott, obviously, but
of course.
but apart from that, just for the guy side, you know, we take digs at it. It's like, oh, you know, Raph, maybe Fed's, Federico's brother Thomas, he's in Vancouver Academy right now, and you know, we say Bustos and sometimes, and you know, it's because Bustos not here anymore. It kind of fuels everybody.
He's a rival now.
Exactly, you know, so it fuels everybody up. Like, I want to be the best. It was like, all right, good, be the best, lad. Now, how are we gonna get there? The need to succeed has to be as badly as you want to breathe.
Right.
You know, you have to be desperate for it. You have to be anything. You're gasping for it. You want. That's how badly you have to want to win. Yeah. And I think that's the mentality in this team that has been growing more and more and more. Because, we're tired of losing. Yeah. We're tired of that. Yeah. You know, we've seen it. We dealt with it. No one likes it, but now we're done with that. Now we know what we need to do, and I think that's the mentality in our room that's going to be different than the years before.
I'm ready to go run a marathon. Where are you?
Yeah, you can tell why he's so important to that team off the pitch, especially.
Yeah. Like, did you guys go crush the dumbbells or something after that together, Charlie, or what? Like, that was an amazing moment. What a human being. Fantastic. Yeah. They're just an inspirational character, no?
Absolutely. And I'm just so happy to see a player like him, of his kind of profile and background, come to Winnipeg and just be so happy to be there and so bought in on that project of the community and the grassroots soccer scene, you know, the local clubs that he's working with. And again, it's so funny that he's an American-born player who represents Haiti internationally, but he is so invested in the Canadian soccer community and the Canadian Premier League, and helping those young players on that team and being a mentor to them. Because he spoke later on in that interview, which again you can see on CanPL.ca, he spoke about his own mentors in the game that he had as a player. I think he mentioned Lloyd Sam and Pamadou Ka and some other players that he played with throughout his time, especially in MLS. And he knows that there are things you learn from a player that or from a teammate that you'll never learn from a coach. It's a very different relationship that you have, and so he embraces that. And I think it's really going to be important for the young players on that team.
Great reminder from Charlie that all these interviews we're playing tonight are just snippets of longer discussions that you can really get to know them. And if you're up for a long run, just go watch Andrew John Baptiste. He'll motivate you to the hill and back. And great to see when he gets on the pitch that he'll be centre-back partnership. Well, I mean, obviously Stefan Chamara is very good as well, but Rocco Romeo's never played with him. And Rocco Romeo from Toronto FC, that could be the real stability that this team needs to allow Dyer and Akio and many others to go flourish and win games for this Valour team. Do not sleep on them. They'll be fun to watch as usual.